in the featherweight division, we got the return of Douglas Silva, de Andrade, coming in at plus 185, going up against Javier Reyes, who comes in at minus 220. Now, starting off on the de Andrade side of things, he's one of those fighters where whenever I see him on the UFC schedule, I'm kind of surprised that he's still with the promotion or he hasn't even retired. He's 40 years old. He hasn't competed in nearly 2 years, and that's kind of more ammunition as to why I believe he wasn't a part of the roster. But here he is, looking to bounce back after the loss that he suffered at the hands of Miles Johns that night. He was really struggling to deal with the output and damage that was being thrown at him, and Johns did a great job in terms of landing his damage, staying on his bicycle, and kind of thwarting the power punching style of de Andrade. De Andrade has had the ability to pull off a few upsets here and there, but with him getting up there in age, it's obviously harder and harder for him to come in at a healthy weight, first and foremost, and secondly, for him to go out there and try to have success with the type of style that he brings to the table. He is also fighting at 145 pounds in this fight compared to the 135 pounds that he used to fight at in the past. So he'll probably have a bit of a size disadvantage and strength disadvantage he's going to have to overcome against his fellow opponent. But normally when de Andrade is successful, he's stalking his opponents, he's marching them down, landing his big strikes and looking to knock them out, or just land enough shots over the course of 2 rounds to still get his hand raised on the scorecards. But that's going to get harder and harder to do the older and older he gets, considering that he relies on that power and that fast twitch muscle, which we know really starts to dwindle the later a fighter gets into their career. Now he's going up against Javier Reyes, who's making his UFC debut after earning his contract through the Contender Series, knocking out Justice Torres. I believe that fight didn't even last about 2 or 3 minutes before Reyes eventually found that big shot to put him away. Reyes is a guy that I've had on my eye on for a long time now, since May of 2024 when he started competing for the LFA. He earned his 8th straight win that night, but was unable to capitalize on it as he eventually got knocked out by eventual LFA champion and recent UFC signee Ryan Douglas. Reyes returned back to the Latin American scene where he got 2 straight finishes and earned himself an FFC title. Then he went back to the LFA and came up short in a very close fight against Chris Makate. He ended up bouncing back just about a month later in a main event slot for the LFA by submitting Lance Lawrence. Fun fight there, but Reyes obviously able to get the finish there. Reyes is a very well-rounded fighter that I believe originally comes from Colombia, but a lot of his training camp takes place in Arizona at the same gym that Waldo Cortez Acosta trains out of. Reyes is very well-rounded, has some good power in his shots, but I think at his best, he does like to implement the grappling game where he often showcases good pressure from that top position and then rains down with big shots or threatens with submissions as well. He also has a very experienced and legitimate 22-5 record before even coming into the UFC, so you got to believe that he's going to be very prepared no matter who the UFC ends up throwing at him. And they're throwing at him a very experienced UFC opponent here in Douglas Silva de Andrade, who has been in the UFC 10, 12 years at this point in time, has fought the best and the worst of the division. But unfortunately for Douglas, I think he's going to struggle here with the well-rounded game of Javier. I think Javier will be able to land better damage, but I ultimately think it's going to come down to the grappling for Reyes. Look for him to utilize his size advantage to take de Andrade to the ground, really grind him out, slow de Andrade down from that top position, and that could either open up a finishing spot for Reyes or him grinding this fight out by decision. I will say this. De Andrade will be dangerous in the first couple minutes of this fight with the power he possesses. Reyes has been knocked out in the past, most notably by Ryan Douglas, and De Andrade could absolutely replicate that. However, the size disadvantage for him here is really going to work against him, and I'm expecting Reyes to get a hold of him, drag him to the ground, and eventually grind him out and win this on the scorecards. I think we see Reyes start his UFC career off on the right foot.